Brian Shaffer was a 27-year-old medical student with a promising future, a bright smile, and a life full of dreams. Until one night in 2006, he vanished into thin air. It was April 1st, 2006, a Friday night in Columbus, Ohio. Brian had just finished a week of grueling exams at Ohio State University College of Medicine. He was ready to celebrate the start of spring break with his best friend, Clint Florence. The plan was simple: grab a few drinks, relax, enjoy the night. But what started as an ordinary evening quickly turned into one of the most baffling missing person cases in modern American history. Brian and Clint began their night at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a bar located near the Ohio State University campus. Surveillance cameras captured them arriving around 9:15 p.m. They had a couple of drinks, laughed, chatted, and then decided to go bar hopping. Throughout the night, they visited several places in the Arena District, eventually meeting up with Meredith Reed, a friend of Brian's, who offered them a ride back to the Ugly Tuna around 1:15 a.m. That was the last confirmed sighting of Brian Shaffer. Security footage shows Brian walking up an escalator with Clint and Meredith toward the entrance of the Ugly Tuna. A camera facing the bar's main entrance records Brian talking briefly with two women, then stepping just out of frame, back toward the bar's entrance. And then he disappears. No footage ever shows Brian leaving the bar. Not through the main entrance, not through any back door, not even through emergency exits, all of which were under surveillance or locked. It was like he had simply vanished into thin air. Clint and Meredith assumed he had gone home or met up with someone. But the next day, Brian's phone went straight to voicemail. He missed his flight to Miami, where he was supposed to go on vacation with his girlfriend, Alexis. She called him multiple times. No response. His parents called. Nothing. Within 48 hours, Brian was officially reported missing. Police began their investigation at the Ugly Tuna. They reviewed hours of security footage from every angle. There was footage of Brian entering the bar, but none of him leaving. Officers checked all nearby buildings, searched dumpsters, rooftops, and alleys. They combed through the area with police dogs. Not a single trace. No blood, no struggle, no witnesses, nothing. Brian's cell phone never pinged again. His bank account remained untouched. His credit cards were never used. It was as if Brian Shaffer had simply ceased to exist. Naturally, speculation ran wild. Some believed Brian had staged his disappearance, maybe to start a new life. But those close to him say it's impossible. He was deeply in love with Alexis, planning to propose. He was close to his family, especially his mother, who was battling cancer at the time. Tragically, Brian's mother died just weeks after his disappearance. Her obituary included a short message. To Brian, we love you. Please come home. Others believed Brian may have fallen victim to foul play, possibly attacked inside the bar, his body smuggled out through some secret route. But again, no evidence supported this. There was also a disturbing theory that Brian was murdered and his body disposed of in a way that ensured it would never be found. But who and why? The most mysterious part remains the security footage. Investigators rewatched every second of tape. People who entered were seen leaving. Staff, patrons, musicians, all accounted for, except Brian. Some theorized he may have changed clothes and blended in with the crowd. Others think there may have been a blind spot in the camera coverage. Still, for a bar so closely monitored, the complete lack of footage showing Brian leaving is chilling. Clint Florence, the last person known to be with Brian, refused to take a polygraph test. This decision raised suspicions, but no charges were ever filed. Police couldn't prove he knew more than he claimed. Meredith, in contrast, cooperated fully. Years passed. Tips came in from across the country, even as far as Sweden. Sightings, rumors, all dead ends. Brian's girlfriend, Alexis, called his phone every night for months after he vanished. One night, months later, it rang. Just once. Her heart skipped a beat. But phone records showed it pinged off a cell tower in Columbus. Investigators said it was likely a glitch. But for Alexis, it was hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, Brian was still out there. Over the years, Brian Shaffer's case became legend among internet sleuths and true crime communities. The mystery was so complete, so utterly baffling, that it captivated millions. Was he abducted? Did he fall victim to a crime? Did he suffer an accident? Or Did he simply choose to vanish? As of today, Brian's case remains open. His face is etched into missing person posters and true crime forums alike. His father, Randy Shaffer, spent years searching, never giving up hope. In 2008, Randy died in a freak accident. A tree fell on him during a windstorm. At his funeral, someone posted a condolence message online signed, Brian. Police traced it to a computer in Franklin County, Ohio, but couldn't determine who wrote it. It could have been a cruel prank, or it could have been something more. No one knows. What we do know is this. One man walked into a bar and was never seen again. Not on camera, not on the street, not anywhere. Brian Shaffer's disappearance isn't just a mystery. It's a haunting reminder that in a world of constant surveillance, people can still vanish without a trace. And that is terrifying. Lars Mittank was like any other young man. He loved football, hanging out with friends, and traveling. A 28-year-old from Germany, Lars was known for being friendly, responsible, and completely ordinary, which is what makes his story so incredibly haunting. Because in July of 2014, during what was supposed to be a relaxing vacation in Bulgaria, Lars vanished without a trace. And the way it happened is something that still baffles investigators, his family, and millions of people around the world. Lars had traveled with a group of friends to the Golden Sands Resort on the Black Sea coast, a popular party destination for young Europeans. Everything was going fine at first. The group was drinking, enjoying the sun, clubbing, and spending time at the beach. Just a normal vacation. But then, things took a strange turn. One night, Lars got into an argument with a group of other tourists, reportedly over football. He was a Werder Bremen fan, and the others supported a rival team. The altercation got physical. Lars was punched in the head and sustained a minor ear injury. He went to a local doctor, who diagnosed him with a ruptured eardrum and prescribed him an antibiotic, cefuroxime 500. Because of the injury, Lars couldn't fly immediately. The pressure change during takeoff could have caused serious damage to his ear. His friends offered to stay, but Lars insisted they go ahead. He booked another flight for a few days later and checked into a cheap hotel called Hotel Color in Varna to wait until he was cleared to fly. And that's when things got truly bizarre. Lars began acting strange. He called his mother back in Germany, whispering into the phone. He told her he didn't feel safe, that people were following him, that he needed to be careful because something wasn't right. Then he asked her to cancel his credit card. Why? He didn't say. He sent her text messages saying he was hiding. He claimed he was being chased. No one was with him. No one else saw anyone chasing him. Later, hotel staff said Lars was behaving nervously, pacing the halls, peeking out of windows, refusing food. He was agitated and paranoid. Then, the night before his rescheduled flight, he vanished from the hotel, only to reappear the next morning at the Varna airport. And what happened next was caught on camera. Surveillance footage shows Lars walking into the airport with a small bag. He enters the medical office, presumably to get clearance to fly. The doctor on duty later said that Lars appeared nervous and paranoid, and that when a construction worker entered the room, just a man in a hard hat, Lars's eyes widened. He whispered something, then suddenly jumped to his feet and ran out. Not just out of the room, out of the entire airport. Lars is seen sprinting out of the building, leaving all of his luggage behind. He ran past security, past other travelers, through the airport doors. Outside, he bolts across the parking lot, then across a grassy area and into the woods. And that was the last time anyone saw Lars Mittank. He disappeared into the trees and never came back. What happened to him? No one knows. His family has searched for him for years. Flyers, posters, TV interviews. They've offered rewards. Internet communities have pored over every detail. But to this day, there's been no confirmed sighting of Lars Mittank. Not a single one. His phone was never used again. His bank account has remained untouched. Nothing. There are many theories, and none of them are comforting. Some believe Lars suffered a psychotic break, maybe triggered by the antibiotics he was taking. It's true that in rare cases, cefuroxime has been linked to symptoms like confusion or paranoia, but others question that explanation. It's rare, and Lars had no history of mental illness. Others believe he was attacked, perhaps involved in something he hadn't told anyone about. Maybe he got into trouble with the wrong people. Some believe he witnessed something he shouldn't have. There's even a theory that Lars was targeted for organ trafficking, that he was abducted after fleeing the airport. But again, there's no evidence. Some think he simply ran into the woods and died there. Maybe of exposure. Maybe he got lost. Maybe animals got to him before search teams could. But wouldn't something have been found? His body? Clothing? Anything? Searches were conducted. Dogs were used. But no trace was ever found. The forest wasn't endless. It's not as though he ran into a jungle. It's an area that people live in, hike in, hunt in. Yet Lars was never seen again. His mother still believes he's alive. She believes he's out there somewhere. Confused, maybe. Hurt, but alive. She's never stopped looking. She says she just wants to know what happened to her son. The footage of Lars sprinting out of the airport has since gone viral. It's been viewed millions of times. People call him the most mysterious tourist in Europe. And maybe they're right, because no matter how much time passes, no one can explain what happened to him. One moment, he's just another young man on vacation. The next, he's running for his life, never to be seen again. So many questions remain. Why did he say he was being followed? Who did he see in that medical room? What made him run so suddenly, without his bags, without a word? And perhaps most haunting of all, where is Lars Mittank? We may never know the answer, but one thing is certain. No one just vanishes like that, not without reason, not without leaving something behind. And yet Lars did. He ran into the woods and into legend. And until the truth comes out, his case will remain one of the most unsettling modern mysteries in Europe. A ghost story without a ghost, a mystery without an ending, a man who simply vanished. Elisa Lam was 21 years old when she vanished. She was a Canadian college student, bright and creative, with a love for fashion, books, and writing. She ran a Tumblr blog where she shared her thoughts, her struggles, and little fragments of poetry. Elisa was battling bipolar disorder, but she was managing it with medication, therapy, and the support of her family. In early 2013, she made the decision to take a solo trip to California, a break from her studies, a small adventure. Her destination, Los Angeles. She checked into the infamous Cecil Hotel on January 26th, and within a few days, she was gone. The Cecil Hotel has a dark history. Located in downtown LA, it's been home to countless disturbing events, suicides, murders, and even serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, stayed there during his killing spree in the 1980s. Another serial killer, Jack Unterweger, also stayed there. The building's halls seemed to echo with tragedy, but Elisa didn't know that. To her, it was just a place to stay. She kept in touch with her family daily, emailing her parents and updating them on her plans. But on January 31st, the messages stopped. Her parents became worried immediately. They called the LAPD and flew to Los Angeles to search for her. The police began an investigation. Flyers with Elisa's face were posted all over the city. They checked the hotel, interviewed staff, searched nearby areas. Nothing. She had vanished without a trace. Then came the video. On February 14th, over 2 weeks after she went missing, LAPD released surveillance footage taken from one of the hotel's elevators. It showed Elisa on the last day she was seen alive, and what it captured was chilling. In the footage, Elisa steps into the elevator and presses several buttons. Then she steps back, but the doors don't close. She peeks out, looking nervously from side to side. Then she suddenly jumps back inside, like she's hiding from someone. She presses herself into the corner, then slowly steps out again, making odd gestures with her hands, moving erratically. She appears disoriented or terrified. She steps in, then out again, waving her arms, talking to someone unseen. Then finally, she walks out of the frame, and the elevator doors close. The footage went viral as almost immediately. Theories exploded across the internet. Was she high? Was she having a mental breakdown? Was someone chasing her? Was she being haunted? Everyone had a theory, but no one had answers. 2 weeks after the video was released, a maintenance worker at the hotel made a horrifying discovery. Guests had been complaining about the water. It had a strange taste, a foul smell. The pressure was low. The water came out dark. So the maintenance worker went up to the rooftop to check the water tanks. And inside one of them was Elisa Lam's body, naked, floating face up. Her clothes were found at the bottom of the tank. No one could explain how she got there. The tanks were heavy, hard to access. There was a hatch, but it was difficult to open. The rooftop itself was locked and alarmed. You weren't supposed to be up there unless you were staff. So, how did she get in? The autopsy ruled her death an accidental drowning. There were no signs of trauma, no drugs or alcohol in her system. The toxicology report showed that Elisa had taken her prescribed medications, though it also suggested she may have skipped some doses. But to many, the explanation felt hollow. The footage, her behavior, the location of her body, it all seemed too bizarre, too unsettling. Some believe she had a manic episode, that her bipolar disorder caused her to hallucinate or become paranoid, that she fled from something only she could see and ended up in the tank by accident. Others believe there's more to the story. Some claim foul play, that someone may have followed her, hurt her, placed her there, that the elevator footage may have been edited, slowed down, or missing frames. There's also a theory about the Cecil Hotel itself, that it's cursed, a place of darkness that attracts tragedy. Even Elisa's body wasn't found until guests literally began drinking the water from the tank she was floating in. The horror of that moment can't be overstated. The incident led to a massive public outcry. Lawsuits were filed. The hotel rebranded multiple times. The Cecil became infamous. Again, Netflix even released a documentary, Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. But even that couldn't provide real closure. Just more theories, more questions. Elisa's parents have stayed mostly out of the public eye. They sued the hotel for negligence, but ultimately lost the case. Still, they believe that more should have been done to protect their daughter. And who can blame them? A young woman checked into a hotel and never came out. Her final moments are captured in a surreal, haunting video that millions have seen. And her final resting place, a water tank, is the stuff of nightmares. There are still people who refuse to believe it was an accident, that something or someone pushed her there. The case of Elisa Lam is a modern urban legend, a tragedy, a mystery, a horror story that's all too real. And yet, despite the footage, despite the investigations, despite the theories, no one knows what really happened in that elevator or how she ended up in that tank, and perhaps we never will. But one thing is certain, Elisa Lam's story is one you'll never forget. Brandon Swanson was a 19-year-old college student from Marshall, Minnesota. He was studying wind turbines, a smart, practical career for a thoughtful and independent young man. He had a close relationship with his parents and friends. Nothing about him suggested that he was the kind of person who would just walk away from his life. But on the night of May 14th, 2008, Brandon disappeared. And what makes his case so chilling is that he vanished while on the phone with his father. Earlier that day, Brandon had been celebrating the end of the semester with friends from his college in Canby, about 30 miles away from his home in Marshall. He attended 2 small gatherings, nothing wild, just low-key parties with friends. He drank, but according to witnesses, he wasn't noticeably intoxicated when he left. Around midnight, Brandon decided to drive home, but something went wrong along the way. At 1:54 a.m., he called his parents. He told them he had driven into a ditch and couldn't get his car out. He sounded calm, not panicked, and asked them to come pick him up. He said he was near Lind, a small town about 7 miles from his home. His parents immediately got in their car and drove out to find him. They stayed on the phone with him for most of the drive. Brandon described landmarks, lights in the distance, the road, but when they arrived at the location he had given them, Brandon was nowhere to be found. His parents kept driving around, flashing their headlights, calling his name out the window. Brandon, still on the line, said he couldn't see them. Something wasn't right. So Brandon told them he was going to walk toward the lights he could see in the distance. He believed those lights were coming from Lind, and he thought if he walked toward them, he'd be easier to find. His father agreed and stayed on the phone with him as he walked. That call lasted 47 minutes. For nearly an hour, Brandon spoke with his dad. He described fences he was walking past, gravel roads, the sound of water nearby. He said he was cutting through fields. His father kept reassuring him, "Just keep talking. We'll find you." And then it happened. Suddenly, Brandon yelled, "Oh shit," and the line went dead. His father tried calling back, again and again. No answer. His parents spent the entire night searching. At dawn, they contacted the police. But at first, the officers didn't take it seriously. Brandon was an adult. Maybe he just ran off. Maybe he didn't want to be found. But his parents knew better. Eventually, the police began a search. They pinged Brandon's phone and found that it wasn't near Lind at all. It was near a different town called Taunton, almost 25 miles from where he said he was. This changed everything. They found his car in a ditch, exactly where the phone ping had suggested. But there was no sign of Brandon. Search teams were deployed, dogs, helicopters, ground crews. They scoured the fields, roads, and rivers. Cadaver dogs followed a scent trail that led from the car through fields to a gravel road, and eventually to the Yellow Medicine River. And then, nothing. The trail stopped. The area near the river was searched extensively, but no body was ever found. No clothing, no phone, nothing. Some believed Brandon may have fallen into the river and drowned, but the river was shallow in most places, barely waist deep. If he had drowned, wouldn't his body have been recovered? Others believe he may have suffered an injury or encountered someone, but there was no evidence of foul play, no sign of a struggle, just silence. And for Brandon's parents, that silence is unbearable. They heard their son's last words. They were on the phone with him when something happened, and to this day, they don't know what. Did he fall? Was he attacked? Did he get disoriented and collapse somewhere, hidden from view? One of the most unsettling details is the timing. That sudden exclamation, "Oh, shit," and then the end. It wasn't gradual. It was instant, like a switch. The case drew national attention, not just because of the mystery, but because of how it highlighted gaps in how missing adults are treated by law enforcement. Because of Brandon's case, Minnesota passed Brandon's Law in 2009, which requires authorities to take all missing persons reports seriously, regardless of age. Years have passed. No remains have been found. No new evidence has come forward. Just a grieving family and a haunting phone call that ends in silence. To this day, Brandon Swanson is still missing, and somewhere, maybe out there in the fields of Minnesota, lies the answer to what happened during those final 47 minutes.